In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a custom scale here, or basically the labels here, and we want them to align nicely. As you can see here, this one aligns very nicely with these items here. And this is all customized by creating basically a cosmetic solution for this. So let's start to look how we can create this wonderful chart with a lot of extras on here. So let's start to look how to custom the X and Y scale labels in Chartjs. To do this, we first need our default code. So we go here to chartjs3.com, getting started, this specific link here, which is as well in your description box. So once you're on here, then just copy this entire chunk of code. Let's copy this, and if you want to understand what this code does, make sure you watch this video here that explains it all. So what I will do is I'll just paste it in there. I will cut out that title and put that title in here. Save, refresh, there we are. So now what I want to do is I want to enlarge this so it's easier to read. So just make this 1000 pixels. Next, convert it into a line chart. Save, refresh, there we are. So next what I want to do is we're going to make this line a bit curved. So I'm going to say attention 0.4. Save that, refresh, and there we are. So now we have this, and what I want to do now is I want to color the lower part here. So basically I want to give it a fill color, and our fill color will be based on our background color here, which is the first one. So I'm going to cut out this, or delete everything else, paste that, there we are. And then for the border color I will do exactly the same. And then we'll make this one number 1 for a solid value. Refresh. Now it's solid, but you see the fill color is still not active. So let's start to create a fill color. So what I will say here, I'm going to say fill equals true. Once I save that, refresh, we have this. And now what I want to do is I want to give this a proper background color. So our background color will be a gradient effect. So we have this here, but this is not really what we want, because we want to make it gradient. So we're going to say here, context. Then here we're going to make a callback functionality. So we're going to say the fat arrow function, or a arrow function expression, one or the other, doesn't matter. Then what I will do here is I will say constant chart equal context dot chart. So once we have this, we can do basically here a object destructuring. If you want to understand what an object destructuring is, I'm going to recommend you to get in the description, go search down in there and search for the video Chartjs and object destructuring, which is very useful. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say just constant to make the object destructuring equals chart, and then here ctx comma chart area comma scales. Alright, so now we have these here. So then, make sure I have this in my column. Then what I want to do here is the following. I'm going to create an if statement, and this if statement will say if, and that's regarding with the chart area, because what happens if I refresh, you can see here we have the animation. This animation here might block it, because in the beginning of the animation, the chart area is not fully loaded. So we're going to say if there's no chart area, I don't want the function to stop and stop basically and says sorry, we need there's a problem. So what I want to do is I want to make sure the function continues. So I just say here return null. So once we did this, it will return null, but after the second load, which is within milliseconds, then we eventually get the chart area value. So this doesn't matter so much. So then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say return. Then I'm going to say here bg gradient, and this will be eventually our gradient functionality, and this is basically based off this here. So I'm going to say ctx, that's the parameters, chart area, and the scales. Once I did this, then what I want to do here is semicolon, save this, but of course we're not done yet, because what happens now is we have here this item. So what I need now with this item, I need to put in here basically the colors. So what we can do here, somewhere in the gradient, we can do maybe here function, and we're going to say here the BG gradient. The BG gradient needs a few items, and basically we already assigned these parameters. These here, so let's copy this and just put it in there. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a constant, and basically this is again an object destructuring, but then specifically for the chart area. So I'm going to say here, let's put in here some enter so we have a bit more space. There we are, that's a bit more comfortable. And then I'm going to say here left, right, top, bottom, and then width and height. Probably we will not be using them all, but that should be more than enough. We just have them ready. So we're going to say chart area, and then what I want to do as well is a constant, and then I'm going to grab here the X and Y scale. Another object destructuring. So there we are, and this should be the scales. Alright. So now we have this. What I want to do now is I'm going to say a constant, and I'm going to say a gradient background equals, and then what I want to do here is to give the color of the gradient. So I'm going to say CTX, which is basically this one here, which allows us to draw on the chart. And I'm going to say here create linear gradient, and then here we're going to define the coordinates. Well, basically we want the full chart, and when I talk about the full chart, not even the chart area, but the very 0.0, just from this corner all the way to the other corner. So what I'm going to say here is just very simple, 0 for the X value starting, and then what I'm going to say here is the top, and there's a comma, 0 for the bottom, and then, sorry, that will be comma, 0. What I was referring to, because we want a gradient, but from up to bottom, but from left to right, sorry. Not from the corner here. I'm confusing myself. It's a background color, which we have to do later on as well. So we're going from here, but basically we want the gradient effect starting from up here and gradually going down, and as we go more down, it becomes more transparent. So we have that's where the top is, and I'm saying here bottom. So once we did this, then I can say here gradient background color, and the gradient background color will consist of dot add color stop, and this color stop will start at 0, which is the very top, and then comma, and I'm going to give it a color, and in this case I will use the red color that we already have assigned here. So I'm going to grab that one, put it in there. So that's a starting point, and the starting point will be a solid red color. So then what I want to do is, as we go down, it will gradually transform into a light color. So we will put in here a transparent or 0. Once we did this, enter, and I'm going to say return gradient background, and the gradient background is of course the item here. That should be this one here. So then I'm going to save this, refresh. Alright, so now you can see as we go up here it becomes very solid, and as we go down it becomes more transparent. So that's one of the first items. So once we have this, the next item what we can do is basically the background color. And the background color requires another item because we need to create here a plugin. So I'm talking about background color, but I just want to be very clear. Well, I guess the right term would not be the background color because that's more referred to this, but it would be basically the chart background color, basically the entire canvas itself. We want to give that a unique color. So let's call it our canvas color. So I'm going to scroll down here, and then in here, after the options, comma, we say plugins, and then colon bracket, and I'm going to say here the canvas color to make sure that we are on the same page. So then I'm going to say a constant canvas color, and maybe what we can do here, canvas color plugin block, and then I'm going to say here equals this ID equal canvas color, and then what we can say here, when would we like to draw this? Well, I would like to draw this before anything else has been drawn. So what I'm going to say here, before draw, and then I'm going to grab your chart arcs and plugin options. And then what I'm going to say here, I'm just going to use here object destructuring again. And again, if you want to understand what we're doing here, check out the video in the description box about Chartjs object destructuring. So I want to say here, what I want here is the CTX, the chart area, which we also covered just or we used it even previously. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to say here top, bottom, left, right, height, and width. So once we have these, do we need the scales in here? Maybe. So what I'm going to do here is scales, and I'm just going to grab here the X and Y. So once I did this, what I want to do now is I want to draw the item. So I'm going to say CTX save to save all variables above. And then what I want to do is I want to start to give it a background color. So I'm going to say CTX.fill style. And the fill style here can be any color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say RGBA. I'm going to make it black. Say 0, 0, 0, 0.1, which is a very transparent black color as our canvas color. So then we have this. And then I'm going to say CTX.fill rectangle to draw. And then we have here the X for the starting X, starting Y. Then we have here the width and the height. Now in this case, I want to start at the very top corner here because I want to color everything here. So basically what we can say here, 0 by 0, and here the width, basically this would not even matter how big it is as long as it is bigger than the chart itself, because by default, if it's outside the canvas, that will not be drawn anymore because it can only draw within the canvas. So you could put in here 1 million pixels and it would not even matter. But let's be moderate. And let's say here, we're going to do width plus height. Sorry, not plus height. Width plus the left, and I guess plus right as well. Plus right. So we have the full item. For the height, we can do almost the same. We're going to say height plus top plus bottom. If I save this now, or before I even save this, I want to say CTX.restore to undo whatever we just did or just added it. So save this, refresh. Alright, interesting. So we get an error here with my bad. I am not spelling it correctly. Make sure you spell it correctly or else you get these errors. And there we are. So you can see here now we have this nice, but we want to have this rounded, and I guess the legend needs to be removed as well. To make it rounded, we basically need to work on the canvas ID. And that is just CSS. So I'm going to do that one very quickly. I'm going to say hashtag my chart, which is the ID of the canvas. And I'm going to say here border dash radius, and let's give it 20 pixels. Save, refresh. So now you can see it is nicely working, but of course we're not done yet. So let's go here down and let's work on the options here. Enter. I'm going to say plugins. I'm going to say in this plugins, put a comma here below. I'm going to say a legend. I'm going to say here display equals false. Once we did that, we can save, refresh. Alright, so that works, but maybe we want to have a proper title here. I'm going to say a title. There's a display true. And then you can put in here a comma, and of course make sure you have your column. I'm going to say a text, that will be the text, and this could be anything. Latest, I guess, I don't know if that's latest sales. Alright, doesn't matter. Comma, and then we could say here maybe if we want the font, then we're going to say with bold. I guess that will make it bold. Make sure that this, of course, is a string. Save. There we are. Now we have this bolded. Beautiful. And if you want to have the size, 14 pixels. 14. Save. There we are. Alright, so now we have this. But what we really want to do was the scales here. And for this, we have to do few modifications. So what we're going to do here is, first of all, I'm going to put an X scale, and then I realized the sample what I received was a time series. So I'm going to say here, type equals time, comma, and then we're going to say here the time object, and then I'm going to say here unit equals, I will say here month. Make sure we write down month. If I save this, nothing will happen here, or it will give an error. Why? We didn't put in the time or date adapter. So what I'm going to do here is I go to chartjs.org, go to ecosystem, and into the ecosystem, I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to click here on adapters. And once you do that, we're going to get the date FNS. So I'm going to grab this and just check if it loads. I remember that today in the morning it didn't load properly, so we're going to check now. So we're going to copy this one only. And the reason why I use date FNS, it only needs one JavaScript file instead of two. So that's why I like this, although I don't use their internal commands. Anyway, once we have that JavaScript file, put it here, make sure it loads after the Chartjs library, and make sure if you're looking for the JavaScript file, it is the Chartjs date adapter date FNS, and you can see here the bundle. So if I save this, refresh, now it works, but we don't have proper values here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert them now. And what I'm going to do here is, we had them in a month, so what I'm going to say here, I'm going to put in 2022. I'm going to say here 0.1 for January, and then 0.1. So just one January, and then for the next one, you'll do February, etc., etc. So I'm going to just paste them in here, and later on, we're going to fine tune that. Alright, so we have here 7 items. So what I'm going to say here, 1, or this is February, March, April, May, June, and July. Save this, refresh. Alright, so that is the, my bad, I'm realizing I'm putting it in the data and not in the date. So I'm going to undo everything here, but I will cut out this one because I want to just paste that in there. Alright, so then, there we are. Save this, refresh. Now it works, it shows nicely. So now we have this one, and let's start to work on the scales here, because what I want to do here is basically I want to move this away and put this 0 aligned with the January here. And then here we have these multiple ticks here. Let's reduce them a bit more. So here I'm going to put a comma. And once I did this, I'm going to look here, well, we're going to look at what exactly it's the ticks. And then what we're going to do here in the ticks, I'm going to say here, max ticks limit, and we're going to put it on 5 items. So if I save that, refresh, that is far more better. Alright, so that's number 1. So the next thing what I need to do is I need to remove all these grid lines, but I will keep them for now. But I will get my code prepared for that. So I'm going to say grid and I say display, and I'll put it on true for now, and later I'm going to set it on false. So that's the next item. And then what I do want to remove, because if I would, you will see, if I set here this on false, save, refresh, you can see we still get these border lines here, and you still get this line. The reason why we get this line is because of the x-axis here from left to right, and the issue with that is because this one is connected to the x-axis or the x scale, so later on we have to do that one. But at least you know this. So let's put this back on true. But here, this item needs to be removed. So what I'm going to say here, to remove that item, I'm going to say draw border and set this on false. If I save this now, refresh, you might not notice it now. Let's put this on false, you will see it then. False, draw border, false as well. Alright, surprisingly, draw border. Somehow this doesn't work. That's alright, we're going to look at that. Alright, so the reason why this doesn't work, of course, this makes sense, my bad, is because this line is also connected to the scale. So there's 2 lines here on top, and when you see this one here, it will probably be removed. If I'm going to copy this structure, put it on here, comma, put that in there, save, refresh. There you are. And now they all are removed already. You know, basically we can just keep it like that, although later on it will be necessary to see them just to have a visual measurement if this one and this is nicely aligned. So we have this here. Next, what I want to do here is, while we have the ticks, what we want to do here is a trick as well. Because if I would say here the ticks and I would say display false, save, refresh, what will happen? It will move this. And that might be fine, but if I will remove this here as well, you will see it if I'm going to do the same here. Put this here, and I'm going to say ticks, save, refresh. We have still this space here. I need to solve that space by removing these dots, and then we have to use some negative padding here, and same here as well. So that's for that we need to have here the ticks being shown, because if we don't show it, we cannot play around with the padding. So we're going to say a true for that one only. Alright, so let me just remove all of these dots here. So I'm going to go up here, comma, I'm going to say a point radius, and then I'm going to set this equals to 0, and let's do a point hover radius. I'll just also put that array, just remove that as well. So once we remove this, alright, so now we have these things here, and you can see here now this space here, or this offset, is gone. We still have it on here, and let's start to work on that. So I'm going to scroll down here back to this. We have to put it on display true, but then what I'm going to do here, say, well, first of all, I'm going to put in the command mirror. So what does mirror do? It basically mirrors the item with the labels within the chart area instead of outside. So that's a very good thing. So I'm going to set this on true. By default, this is always set on false. So as you can see here, while we do mirror it, for some reason, it still has this so-called padding here. So it's a comma, I'm going to put in a padding. And this padding will be a -4. Let's put a -4 in here. There we are. As we do that, this item here is losing its position. And there is no real solution for this here. The only solution that we're going to build is building our own. So that's why this here will be removing this. How will we remove this? Well, very simple. I'm going to say your color and just put it on transparent. So basically, they're not being removed. They're just not visible to the eye. And that's just a cosmetic trick. There we are. Now we have this. So now we are here, but of course, what about the scales X and Y? So for that, we're going to now, because we're almost done here, final part is going to create the plugin, and what we can call this plugin would be our custom scale. Although it's not really a custom scale, we are just playing around with some tricks basically. So it's not a real unique scale. So just to make sure you know that. We're going up here, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say here, very simple, / custom scale plugin block. Then I'm going to say a constant custom scale equals this. Let's say ID equals custom scale, and then we're going to say here, when are we going to draw this? Well, remember, this one was drawn before everything else loads, but I don't want that for the custom scale. The custom scale should load before the data set has been loaded. So that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to say here, before data sets draw, in that case, chart, arcs, and then here plugin options, exactly the same as above. Basically, again, a object destructuring, and then in this case, our object destructuring, what will it get? It will get here, this equals chart, but then we're going to grab again the CTX, the chart area, and then for the chart area, we might use probably a few items, these top, bottom, left, right, width, and height. And once you don't use the ones you don't need, you can always remove them, so that's no problem. I'm just putting them there so we have them. And then we have the scales, and the scales X and Y, because we will be needing their coordinates. So this is very important. Now we have this. So what I want to do next is to really think, alright, we have this one here, enter, ctx.save, and let's think exactly what we need. So we need to consider a few things. We need to loop through these items here, because we need to know where these ticks are being positioned. And to be honest, they are positioned, well, let's look at it. If I say here, this is true, alright. But here, I'm going to put in the grid, I'm going to say here true, and I will set this one on true for the X grid and the Y grid. And the reason I want that is, oh, what happened? True and true. Let's see. Unexpected identifier on number 100. I forgot to close here something or do something here. Number 100 ctx.save. Of course. Why does it give an error? The command is correct, but it's not within the function here with the object destructuring. So it needs to be within the object destruction, or else of course you get an error because it cannot read the ctx constant value. Save that again. Refresh. Alright. So now we have this. You can see these lines will tell us basically if we have here the 0, this will be here the 0, or whatever this would be. And then here we have the numbers. Then we have here down, and this, and this. So here would be the index of the x-axis, which would be the month. So what I'm going to do here now is the following. I'm going to say a console log. I'm going to grab here the x value. The x value is related to the scales here. Save, refresh, open up developer tab. Now you get a lot of loads. Don't worry about it, just get one of them. And you can see here the ticks. And what we get here is the value, which is basically the value in milliseconds from whatever the month would be. And then we have here if it's a major, true or false. And secondly, we have here the item. So we know that this value, this in milliseconds, equals January 2022. And it goes all the way to July 2022. Which is correct because we have only 7 months. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to grab to this namespace here, the ticks. So how do you get there? From x.ticks. So the x.ticks is an s, save, refresh. Now we get all of these arrays here. And what I want to do now is I want to grab this value and I'm going to grab this value, the labels. So how can we do this? Well, that's quite simple. What I'm going to do here is we're going to use a for each loop. So this dot for each, and then what I want to say here, tick. So basically these ticks, now I just refer to them as a shorthand of tick. So for every individual tick, because it will loop through every tick. And then what I want to say here, maybe let's see, besides the tick, do we need the index? I think we do. And then what I want to do here, I need to have another parenthesis then. And once I do that, another here. Then I'm going to make here a function arrow expression because it will be callback functionality. And here, what I'm going to do is, let's think, we need to loop through every value that we have and put them in the right position here. So what I'm going to use here for that is, well, first of all, I'm going to say here ctx.font because I need to define the font first, or else you cannot draw anything. So I want to say the font. What is the font in our case? I'll make sure it's a bold number or a bold value. Secondly, I want to say this is 10 pixels, and you can do any amount of pixels you want. But by default, Chartjs uses 12 pixels. But if you have a lot of values, go a bit lower. That's probably more readable or more better for the chart. So then we have this. What I need more is the sans serif for the font family style. Once you have that, I'll say ctx.fill style for the color. And in this case, the color, I'll just use hashtag 666, which is one of the official colors of Chartjs. Once I have that one, what I want to do now is I want to put in the text. I'm going to say ctx.fill text. And then here, what I'm going to do, this is basically here our text, and then here will be our x, and then here will be our y coordinates. So you might say, alright, how do we get these? Well, let's look at it. We have here the label, and the label is the text of the item. So how do I get this label? Well, remember, we are here in the tick, so the tick is the object of this item here with all access to everything here. So I'm going to say tick, so I'm going to put in here, very simple, tick dot label. So the next, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say a 10, and let's make this 50, and if I save this, we should see here at least something. And of course, this is not very desirable yet, because we're not in the right position. So we have this here now. So what I want to do now is get the right position here. The right position can be extracted because of the ticks here. How? Let's go in here, go back here, we have the value, and the value here is matched with the line of the grid line. So I'm going to grab here the value. So how do I do this? Tick.value. So I'm going to say here tick.value, but I'm not done here. I need to say x dot, and what I really want to do is this value, convert this into a pixel value. So I'm going to say x, which is for the scale, and then say here get pixel for value, and then we put in this item here. So once I did this, save, refresh, look at that. Now it starts to match nicely. So once we did this, and you can see here, this one matches here, we have to still put it in the center a bit. So I'm going to say here, ctx.text align equals center, save, refresh. Alright, now we have this, but you can see these two here are going to be a conflict. So what we will do later on is remove those two, but let's position it first to the bottom here. So then what I want to do here is the x value, the y value basically, and the y value we can say here, very simple, bottom, because we have that here as well. Let's save that and then see if this is good. This is quite acceptable, but what I want to do is I want to put it a little bit more down. So this is the line here, this is the 0 point, by the way. This is where the 0 is assigned. So what I want to do here, basically the following, I'm going to say here, bottom, and then we say, oh, not even the bottom, here, my bad. I'm going to put it here, ctx dot text baseline, which is very similar in CSS with the tables. We have top, middle, and bottom. So we're going to say here, middle. So we're going to put it in the middle, save, refresh, and look, now it is aligned with this line. Beautiful. So now we are done here, but of course I want to have a filtering mechanism here. That's why we have the index here, or basically we can just check that, and all we need to do is remove the first one in the index, which is index 0, and remove whatever would be the last one. So what I'm going to do here is an if statement, and then in this if statement I'm going to say here if index is larger than 0 and the index would be smaller than, and what exactly? Well, I'm going to say x.ticks.length minus 1. What this really does is it basically calculates what is the length of the ticks array. If there were 7 items, so say length 7 minus 1, and then we get here the value. So once I did this, cut this out, put it in there, there we are. Save, refresh, and now we have this here. Absolutely phenomenal. Next one, of course, is here the values where I want to put them on these lines here. So to do this, we're almost doing the same thing, just only one exception in this case, and that is we need to do on the y value. However, what I want to do before I even do anything else, I saw one thing I forgot, ctx.restore, to undo all the adjustments we have above here. And maybe if I look at this, we can maybe even cut out this part, and the reason why is because basically we want to have the same text in the other item as well. So we could see that one, although we will check on that. So that doesn't matter. So we have this here. So then what I'm going to do here is, let's see, this is the entire item. Then I'm going to say here, y.ticks. I'm going to do exactly the same. I guess we can just copy everything. I'll just copy this, and then from there on we can just work on every item. So I'm going to say here the y. I'm going to say as well the y, but here items will be slightly different because the coordinates must be different. So what I want to do here, because we have here the ticks x, alright, and then what I'm going to do is I put it just down here, and I want to make this ticks y. Save, refresh. Alright, so we got an error here, interesting. So 107, what is going on here? Of course, semicolon here, so that will mean here also semicolon, or else you get an error. Refresh. Alright, we get this, and to be honest, I am surprised. I don't see anything yet. We're going to the item, of course. So the reason why we don't see here is because we're getting here the X value, which of course, if you have 0 milliseconds, that would be in the year 1970, January 1, which doesn't make any sense for us. So we're going to say the Y, because the tick value starts at 0. There. Save that, refresh. Alright, so now we get these numbers here. It does something, but of course it's not in the well placed. But if I click here, you can see a value, and we get here the label itself. So these values here is based on one line here, or based on all these lines here all together. So now, what I'm going to do here, and I guess maybe here we could just give this a slightly bigger font size, because the number is probably more important than this. This is still quite acceptable to read, but here the number is maybe harder to read, and that's the one what is most important. So what I'm going to do is I leave everything else. I'm going to say here, but here we have to look exactly how do we push that correctly together. Let's see, we have here the bottom, and of course the bottom is this part here, but we don't want it here, we want it here on the left side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this, and I'll just say here left, save, refresh. So now we get something here. So that looks already promising. But then here, the bottom, let's see, what is the right term for it? Is bottom really the good item for this? Let's see, I guess here, oh, of course, sorry, I'm trying to figure out, trying to make it of my own, but of course, that's the one we need to wear, whatever our position is. Of course, not the bottom here. That's ridiculous why I'm thinking about it, because we need to be based on whatever the value is. And you can see here, here, and here, maybe, or in this case, we would like to show the 0, which is the index 0, and maybe the upper value. So this if statement that helps us to filter can be removed here. We don't need that now. That makes sense, of course. So we can get all of these values, put them all together, save that, refresh, and there we are. But what are we missing here? Well, what we can do here, what we could do here is to add up, maybe on the left side we can just say plus maybe 10 pixels, save, so we move it 10 pixels to the right. There we are. Do we like this? Not really. I would say maybe 15 pixels, and there we are. So now you can see they're really nicely aligned here, and this is absolutely beautiful looking chart. So now what I want to do, and you can see here this part here, and I chose here before data set, but you can also do after if you would say, well, I would like to see the numbers far more clear, although to be honest the difference is minimal, although you see now the darker shades more better, but I'll just do here before. That's acceptable. If you don't like it, you can make it bolder or make the font slightly bigger here, or we can say instead of bold we put in bolder, make it a little bit more bigger, although the difference is neglectable, I guess. Anyway, we have this here now. Let's remove now all of these items here. The ticks we have there, we maintain that one, but the display here false. Grab this and put the grid lines here on false for the X, save, refresh, look at that, there you are. Of course you can play around with it even more if you desire, or maybe you want to put that more in the center. That's still also possible. Maybe, well, let's do that one. I noticed that that might be a demand for many, and I don't blame you. So if you want it in the center, what we can do is the following. We're going to say here, let's see, here we have the left, and then, let me think. Oh, sorry, while looking at it, I realize, well, that's already in the center. Sorry, that's already in the center. So if you look very carefully, it's already in the center. Why? Because we have the text align center. It's ridiculous, and I didn't even notice that. But as you can see, these lines or these items are just very, very the order of it is just very small. It's hard to spot them. But anyway, they're all in the center. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want to do, for example, because now we don't have any lines, but I can imagine you want maybe your own custom lines where you have like a top and bottom or something like that, like an arbitrary line, in that case I have a wonderful video here saying how to create a arbitrary or create even 2 arbitrary lines in Chartjs. So a highly recommendable video to watch as well.